Welcome to day 25 of the Mindful30 Challenge. Today's practice is from Frank Ostaseski, and it's a 15-minute openness practice.
There's a period that I've seen often when people are sick and dying, when there's a tendency to contract around their experience, whether it's the experience of loss or dependency or physical pain, fear. And during this period, there's a hunger almost to cling to whatever's familiar, even if it's their suffering. And often, as caregivers, we actually exacerbate that clinging. And one of the ways that we do it is by just focusing on the problem. When we just focus on the problem, we cause ourselves or others to feel small, to become identified with the problem. It becomes something to be solved. That can happen in the meditation as well. Instead of really living it like a mystery to be discovered. Imagine if we saw the people we served as a mystery to be discovered. Imagine if we saw ourselves that way. I was with a woman who was in my retreat a couple of weeks ago, cancer survivor. She said, when I went to the doctors, they were always talking about curing, and never about healing. And finally I turned to my doctor and I said, curing stops a process. Curing is what we do to pickles. Could we just be open to the dynamic, the intrinsic dynamism of healing? Even in a meditation like this, there comes a point when a particular problem resolves. Knee pain goes away, or the sensation which has been troubling, or the state of mind which has been troubling seems to have dissolved. And what can frequently happen is we just go on cruise control. We just feel this relief. But in a way, it's a kind of waiting for the next problem to arise. And so what we want to do today is turn our attention toward the actual openness. We've been observing all the objects of mind and body, breath, and sensation, emotions, and thoughts. This morning we want to turn our attention to that which all this is moving through. The openness. Rilke, in his 8th elegy, writes about this. He's a little sad about it, it seems. He says, with their whole gaze, animals behold the open. And he has open with a big O. Only our eyes are as though reversed and set like traps around us, keeping us inside that there is something out there we know only from a creature's countenance. No, never, not a single day do we let the space before us be so unbounded that the blooming of one flower is forever. We are always making it world and never letting it be nothing. The pure and unconstructed, which we breathe and endlessly know and do not crave. Sometimes a child loses himself in this stillness and gets shaken out of it, or a person dies and becomes it. For when death draws near, we see death no more. We stare beyond it with an animal's wide gaze. Lovers also look with astonishment into the open when the beloved doesn't block the view. It surges up, unbidden, in the background. But sometimes neither can get past the other, and so the world closes again. Ever turn toward what we create, we see in it only reflections of the open, darkened by us. This is our fate, to stand in our own way, forever in the way. And we, always and everywhere spectators, turn not toward the open, but to the stuff of our lives. It drowns us. We set it in order, it falls apart. We order it again, and fall apart ourselves. Who has turned us around like this? Whatever we do, we're in the posture of one who's about to depart. So openness. What about just being with the openness? To really feel this quality of our being, not just as an absence of problems, but as intrinsic to our being. Just as compassion is that quality of our being that helps us to sense, openness is that quality of our being that helps us to appreciate spaciousness, gives space to things. It's the quality of inexhaustibility, boundlessness. So we've been watching the breath and body, emotions and thoughts. What would it be like just to turn toward the openness? To begin to feel the space that all this has been moving through. And in that, to begin to learn the nature of how all this arises. Not just studying the products of our mind, but beginning to come into contact with the mind itself. And when I say mind here, I mean our awareness, the openness of our being. How does it function? Where is the mind? Do you think it's in your brain? And if you didn't have a brain, would you still have a mind? And what's in charge? You think you're in charge? Try stopping your thoughts. Wisniewski writes, in the summer of 1995, Time magazine summarized the latest brain research in a cover story entitled, In Search of the Mind. Most people were probably not aware that the mind was lost. And chances are they became quite disturbed to discover that even the neuroscientists couldn't find it. The Time article concluded, despite our every instinct to the contrary, consciousness is not some entity inside the brain that corresponds to self, some kernel of awareness that runs the show. And after more than a century of looking for it, brain researchers have concluded that such a self simply does not exist. So far, scientists cannot find a particular region of the brain that gives orders. Every part of the brain knows what every other part of the brain is doing, and each part influences all the others through a type of dependent co-arising. In fact, the neuroscientists say that reality is primarily a creation of the brain talking to itself. One Nobel laureate reports that the majority of brain cells are not affected directly by the external world, but by other brain cells. So in the act of seeing, for instance, only 20% of the information being processed comes through the retina, while 80% comes from other parts of the brain. When I do that math, it means that perception is 4/5 projection. Let's sit with the openness and watch the dance of this interdependency, of these multiple arising conditions. Just feeling the interplay of all these energies, rather than getting stuck on them as a kind of problem to be solved. It's open to the mystery of this dance. So let your attention come to the breath, to the body. And then just rest. Don't go looking. Don't get enamored with your capacity to create. Let's just observe and feel. Turning toward openness instead of toward our constructions. Let the breath breathe you. Let it be like a breeze blowing right through you. Feel the openness. Feel all around it. Relax into this openness and know that it's you.